Welcome back to Salt City Counseling, everybody. My name's Scott. I am a licensed therapist in the beautiful state of Utah. Salt City Counseling is my company. If you like my content, obviously like, subscribe, share, comment, subscribe. I said it twice. You can also hit that tip jar, man, and it will help me keep this free content going. The best content that I know how to give you. And so, if you also have a question for me, you can, scottc at saltcitycounseling.com. You could ask a question in a comment. I'll try to get to it. I don't review my comment section very often, to be honest. Once a week if I'm lucky, if I remember to do it. Anyways, so in this video, I'm going to talk about how kids, the types of issues, the mental health and behavior issues that I see kids and particularly teenagers developing when they have a narcissistic or borderline parent. Towards the end of this video, too, I'm also going to address what parents can do if you are the apologetic parent or the low conflict parent, what you can do to help offset all of this, okay? To help your kid actually learn how to thrive, adapt, and overcome. And actually, I'll probably touch a little bit on how you might actually be making it worse. Not trying to spark your anxiety. I know your stomach jumps in your throat. Main thing is learn to be a thinking person instead of that afraid person, but we'll get there, okay? So let's get into some of the concerns that I see with kids. Now, one of the things that troubles me the most, sometimes, not always, is how other clinicians, other mental health psychologists and other therapists are not as concerned about how borderline and narcissistic parents treat their kids as I am. I know they're concerned about it. I really believe a lot of them are either they're just sort of ignorant. They're not putting A and B together. Oh, well, this kid has all of these issues going on, and their parent seems to be narcissistic. Totally unrelated. No, that's false. They are related. If you're a mental health therapist and you share some of these concerns, you see the concerns that I have, help me out, man. Hit the comment below so that I know that I'm not the only one and I don't feel like I'm crazy by seeing like a kid with like severe OCD, which is one of the things I'm going to get into, and that it's clear this kid is debilitated. This kid is like paralyzed in life by severe crippling OCD, and it's clearly linked to their borderline or narcissistic parent. But let me get into this. Okay, starting at a younger age, kids will show poor tolerance for distress. Small items cause a lot of anxiety and total emotional meltdowns. Ability to problem solve doesn't exist. Ability to cope doesn't exist. Kids can also show aggression. They can be angry towards other kids. They can end up being aggressive towards other kids. Not always, but when the kids start to get older, then you sort of get into the cluster of control. And a lot of issues have to do with control because the teenagers have these parents that are very controlling. Narcissistic parents are extremely controlling. Borderline parents, extremely controlling. Borderline parents are more so like really, really threatened. Borderline parents are more so like, don't leave me, right? Stay here all the time. Do all the right things. Love me. Make me feel loved. You can't tell a borderline that kids can't make them feel loved. They don't listen to anything but their emotions. If their emotions say those kids are doing a horrible job of loving you, then they're going to be pissed and furious at their kids. And I feel like I'm the crazy one because I'm one of the few clinicians that is like, this is a problem. Anyways, moving on. So the cluster of control. If kids are controlled, they're going to find things that they can control or give them a sense of control. OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. I've seen OCD manifest in the form of an eating disorder. I've seen OCD manifest in the form of controlling what the kid eats, when they eat, how much they eat, what they eat on, which dishes they use, which specific set of silverware they use, etc., etc., etc. And even though I've seen this a couple of times, the most significant or severe situation had to do with this kid that just had serious OCD around food and eating and dishes and all of this stuff. And I knew dad was likely narcissistic. I was sure of it. And then later down the road, it was disclosed that dad he weighs everybody in the family. Go get on the scale, and then just tears into them for being too fat. And even regardless of how skinny everybody is, this is obviously a method of control. And I'm like, well, why does he do that? Well, he wants to know how much we weigh. No, he wants to control you. Doesn't care how much you weigh. He wants to control you. This is a way of making you afraid. Narcissists feed off of fear. It's their Gatorade, man. It's their fuel. They just feed off of fear. So they deliberately create it because it just emboldens them. It just makes them feel. I'm convinced it makes them feel big and strong and powerful to create that fear. But going back to the control cluster, man, cutting, hair pulling, they might cause bruising on themselves. They might burn themselves. These are kids, 15 years old, 16 years old. You show me a kid who's had a severely controlling parent, and I'll show you a kid that has control issues somewhere else. So outside of the control cluster, by the way, along with that, addiction, video games, stuff like that. Okay. But once we get outside of the control cluster, then I see kids that have crippling anxiety. They struggle socially. They are failing school. They're deathly afraid of criticism. They cannot absorb any criticism without it causing like a significant amount of distress for them. Worst of all, kid develops a personality disorder. Borderlines beget borderlines, narcissists beget narcissists, and vice versa. They just do. And the thing is, to me, that's really important is for the kids to have an identity, just to form an identity and have that identity reinforced and validated heavily by healthy adults. And that is the main thing that will help them become a healthy adult. So now I promised that I would talk a little bit to the what I call apologetic parent on how to combat this, how to offset this. Now, number one, I talk about self-care in my other videos. The apologetic parent must engage in self-care. Must. It is an absolute must. And you have to learn to control your fear. I'm telling you, narcissists, borderlines, they feed off of your fear. When you're afraid, they're energized. Learn to manage your fear. Take a class. Read books on assertiveness. Don't give up until you've got it mastered. Okay? Number two, focus on resiliency parenting, meaning that adapt and overcome. How can we learn from this challenge? Strength over struggle. I mean, I can come up with a whole bunch of cutesy quotes, ones that I like. I'm not making fun. I like them. They work for me. But focus on the lesson. Focus on bouncing back. But number three, I've already mentioned it. You must validate them. You must validate their identity. You must give them permission to fail. You must give them the confidence to fail. You must tell them that they are exactly lovable, exactly how they are. The person that they are to the core is insanely wonderful and lovable, exactly how they are. And that can help create a strong identity formation. And when you have that, a lot of good things can happen. You can adapt and overcome. You want to take that resiliency mindset. Oh, what can we learn from this? How can we bounce back? But main thing is work on your fear. Work on your fear. If your kids see you afraid of the high conflict parent, they're going to be afraid. And that's what you don't want. But ways that you might be enabling this too, by the way, one is if you remain afraid of the narcissistic or borderline parent and your kids see that, you're going to exacerbate it. I mean, that's just the bottom line. You must learn and practice good self-care. You've got to learn to manage your fear. You can't fake it. People can feel it. They can read it. Fear is a powerful emotion. You can't fake it. Okay. But two is if you are in a relationship with someone who is narcissistic or borderline, let's say you're still married, and you are just trying to keep the peace, and you see the kid get thrown under the bus, and you fail to intervene for that kid because you don't want the backlash. I'm sorry, but you're an accessory to the crime. You're just enabling them. I'm sorry, and I know there's a certain amount of denial that comes with that as a defense mechanism, but Just being honest, okay? Thank you for watching. That's going to do it for this one. Remember, self-care, man. Resiliency. Learn to manage your fears. Narcissists feed off of fear. Okay. See you next time.